The airport was loud long before the morning sun fully rose. Rolling suitcases tapped across the floor. People hurried past each other, and announcements echoed to the wide halls every few minutes. Travelers looked down at their phones, rushing toward gates and lines, each person focused on their own destination. Among the crowd walked a quiet older man in a dark navy uniform. His posture was straight and careful, the kind built from many years of discipline. The gold insignia on his shoulders showed his rank clearly to anyone who understood military symbols. He was a Japanese admiral, someone who commanded respect in his own country. But inside the busy American airport, none of that seemed to matter. He held a small folder in his hand. Inside were documents about an international naval conference he had traveled thousands of miles to attend. Officers and officials from several countries were gathering to discuss cooperation at sea. The Admiral had been invited as an important representative. At home, he was used to organize schedules, respectful greetings, and clear communication. Here, everything felt confusing. He stopped near a large information board and looked up at the moving lines of English words. The letters changed quickly. Gates, times, flights, locations. He understood some English, but not enough to feel comfortable in a place this busy. He quietly read the printed paper he carried with him again. Conference transportation pickup, Terminal B. He looked around the huge hall. Signs pointed in several directions. Terminal A, Terminal C, baggage claim. Ground transport. Terminal B was not easy to see. People rushed past him on both sides. A few brushed his shoulder without even noticing. One person pulling a suitcase nearly bumped into him before quickly moving around him. The Admiral waited a moment, hoping someone from the conference would be holding a sign or looking for him. No one was. He checked his watch. He had arrived on time, maybe even early. Still, no one approached him. After a minute, he walked slowly toward a counter where an airport worker stood helping travelers. When his turn came, he bowed slightly out of habit. "Excuse me," he said carefully. The worker looked up but seemed rushed. "Terminal B shuttle?" the Admiral asked. The worker pointed quickly across the hall. "Down that way." Past security, left hallway. Then the worker turned to the next traveler before the Admiral could ask anything else. The directions came too fast. The Admiral nodded politely anyway and stepped aside. He walked in the direction the worker had pointed, but after several minutes, he was no longer sure he had understood correctly. The hallway split into two paths. Both had signs with words he did not fully understand. He stopped again. People walked around him as if he were invisible. He did not like asking for help repeatedly. In his career, he had spent years leading ships and crews through difficult waters. He was used to solving problems quietly, but this airport felt like a maze. Eventually, he chose one hallway and continued walking. The hallway grew quieter as he moved farther away from the main crowd. Offices lined the walls. Doors opened and closed as workers moved in and out. Still no sign of the conference transportation. His suitcase wheels made a soft sound behind him. After several more minutes, he realized something was wrong. This could not be the correct direction. He sighed softly and stopped walking. For the first time since landing, he felt something unfamiliar. Not fear, but uncertainty. He checked his phone. Several messages from conference organizers were there, written in fast English sentences that were difficult for him to fully understand. One message mentioned a meeting schedule beginning soon. He looked down at the time again. If he could not find the correct location soon, he might arrive late. That thought bothered him more than anything else. Being late was unacceptable in his profession. He turned around and walked back toward the main hall. When he reached the crowded area again, the noise felt even louder than before. Announcements echoed above him while people rushed through security lines. He spotted another information desk and approached it. Two workers were speaking with a group of travelers. The Admiral waited patiently to the side. Several minutes passed. When the workers finally finished, they quickly began organizing papers behind the counter, instead of looking at the line that had formed. The Admiral cleared his throat politely. "Excuse me," he said again. One worker looked up briefly. "Yes." "Conference transport," he said slowly. "Terminal B pickup." The worker frowned slightly and typed something on the computer. You probably missed it, the worker said quickly. Next one may be in an hour. Try outside ground transportation. Outside? The Admiral asked. But the worker had already turned to another traveler. The conversation was finished. The Admiral stood there for a moment, unsure what to do next. He walked toward the exit doors that led outside the airport. Cold air rushed in each time the automatic doors opened. Buses, taxis, and shuttles lined the curb. Drivers shouted destinations. Engines roared. The Admiral stepped aside near a bench and placed a suitcase beside him. For the first time that morning, he sat down. He watched the busy street in silence. Back home, younger officers often came to him for guidance. They trusted his experience. They listened when he spoke. Here, he felt like just another traveler lost in a crowd. He took a slow breath and tried to calm his thoughts. It was not anger he felt, mostly exhaustion from the long flight and the confusion of the unfamiliar place. After several minutes, he decided to go back inside and try again. Perhaps someone from the conference had arrived while he was outside. When he re-entered the building, the hallway he chose led to a quieter part of the terminal. The bright crowds faded behind him. Fluorescent lights hummed softly overhead. Offices, maintenance closets, and staff doors lined the walls. At the end of the hallway stood a row of chairs against the wall. The Admiral walked over and sat down again, setting his folder carefully on his lap. He looked down at the papers. Somewhere in this large building, the conference organizers were preparing for an important meeting, and he, one of the invited speakers, could not even find the right entrance. He let out a quiet breath. Footsteps echoed faintly down the hallway. For several minutes, no one passed by. Then a maintenance cart rolled slowly around the corner. The person pushing it wore simple work clothes and rubber gloves. A large bag of cleaning supplies hung from the side of the cart. The worker moved calmly, stopping occasionally to empty trash bins along the hallway. Most people would not have noticed the older officer sitting in the chair, but the worker did. As the cart approached, the worker glanced at the Admiral once, then again. The Admiral sat very still, reading his papers. The worker continued past him for a few steps, then stopped beside a trash bin nearby. The sound of a plastic bag being tied echoed softly in the quiet hall. The Admiral rubbed his forehead for a moment and spoke quietly to himself in Japanese. "This is more difficult than I expected," he murmured. The words were soft, almost too quiet to hear. But the worker near the trash bin froze for a moment. Slowly, the worker turned his head. He looked at the Admiral with a surprised expression. For several seconds, he simply stared, as if making sure he had heard correctly. Then he wiped his hands on a cloth and carefully pushed the cart a little closer. The hallway was silent, except for the distant echo of airport announcements. The worker hesitated. Finally, in careful but clear Japanese, he spoke. "Summa Mason, do you need help?" The Admiral looked up, startled. His eyes met the janitor's, and for a moment, he could hardly believe what he had heard. After hours of confusion and being ignored, someone had spoken to him in his own language. It was a small thing, but it felt like a lifeline. The janitor hesitated, unsure if he should continue. He had not used Japanese in years. Most of his days were filled with cleaning floors, emptying trash, and fixing small problems no one else noticed. He had once studied Japanese as a hobby, hoping to travel or maybe work in translation, but life had other plans. Raising his child alone after his wife had passed meant long hours and little opportunity to use the language he loved. And now, here it was coming back to him in an unexpected, important way. The Admiral cleared his throat and spoke carefully, his voice soft but steady. "Yes, I am looking for the conference pickup. Terminal B. I did not know where to go." The janitor nodded. "I can help you. I know the airport a little. Come with me." He pushed the cart slowly so as not to scare the Admiral. His movements were gentle, respectful. The Admiral rose, bowing slightly, a quiet expression of gratitude. "Thank you. I am grateful." The janitor smiled faintly. He had never helped someone like this before, not a visitor of such high rank. He felt a mix of nervousness and pride. "Do not worry," the janitor said. "We will find the pickup. It is not far, but you must follow me carefully. There are many signs, and they are in English." They moved down the hallway together. The janitor kept an eye on the Admiral, who walked with the careful steps of someone used to discipline but now slightly unsure of his surroundings. Other workers glanced at them as they passed, but none stopped. The janitor ignored the looks, focused on guiding the man before him. "Why are you alone here?" the janitor asked quietly. "No one from the conference met you?" The Admiral shook his head. "I arrived early. Perhaps they did not expect me yet. I tried asking, but they do not understand me well. I do not want to disturb anyone." The janitor nodded. He understood too well what it was like to be overlooked. People assumed he was invisible because he wore a uniform and pushed a cleaning cart, but he had noticed everything in the airport for years. Now he realized that someone else needed that same small attention. "Do not worry," the janitor repeated. "We will find a place." They reached a wide open area with several signs pointing in different directions. The janitor paused, looking up and reading the signs carefully. "Terminal B, yes, it is this way." "Follow me," he said, leading the Admiral through a series of hallways and elevators. Each turn was deliberate, each step cautious. The janitor wanted to make sure the Admiral would not get lost again. As they walked, the Admiral glanced at the janitor with a quiet curiosity. "You speak Japanese very well. Did you study it long?" The janitor smiled, a faint shadow of pride in his eyes. "Many years ago, I studied at a school. Then life changed. I could not continue. But I remember enough to help you now." The Admiral nodded slowly. "It is fortunate. I am relieved." They reached a series of glass doors that led to the ground transportation area. Outside, buses, shuttles, and taxis lined the curb. Drivers shouted destinations. Engines roared. Travelers hurried by, carrying luggage and papers. The noise was overwhelming, but the Admiral stayed close to the janitor, following every step carefully. "There it is," the janitor said quietly. "The shuttle for your conference. Wait here. Do not move. I will call someone to confirm." The Admiral nodded, grateful. He did not speak much as he watched the busy street, the sounds and colors a blur. He had flown for hours, crossed time zones, and yet the kind gesture of one person made him feel safe again. The janitor pulled out his phone and made a quick call to the shuttle service desk. His voice was low and polite as he explained the situation. Moments later, a driver stepped forward, recognizing the Admiral immediately. The Admiral bowed slightly to the janitor before moving toward the shuttle. "Thank you," the Admiral said quietly in Japanese. "You have been very kind. I do not forget this." The janitor smiled and waved as the Admiral boarded. Watching the bus pull away, he felt a quiet satisfaction he had not expected. Helping someone had made him feel more human in that moment than he had in years. He thought about his own life, the struggles of raising his child alone, the endless hours of work. Yet here, in a simple act of kindness, he had made a real difference. Later, when the Admiral reached the conference venue, he found everything was in order, thanks to the guidance he had received. The organizers were surprised at his calm and readiness. They did not know that one quiet janitor had ensured he arrived safely and on time. Back at the airport, the janitor returned to his cleaning duties. The floors needed mopping, the trash needed emptying, and the hallways demanded attention. He moved through them efficiently, quietly, but his mind lingered on the Admiral. The memory of the man's polite bow and quiet gratitude stayed with him, warming the long hours of work ahead. Later that evening, the janitor thought about his life. He had faced many challenges, but today he realized that even small gestures could have a profound impact. Speaking a language from memory, guiding someone who needed help, giving attention to a person overlooked by others. It reminded him that his actions mattered. At home, where he returned his child, he shared the story in simple terms. It was not about grand recognition or reward. It was about a day when someone had been seen, someone had been helped, and in the quiet moments before his child slept, he felt a sense of fulfillment that no paycheck could ever give. The Admiral, meanwhile, would carry the memory of that morning with him throughout the conference. Among officials and diplomats, he remained focused and professional, but he often thought of the janitor who had spoken to him in Japanese when he needed it most. The kindness of a stranger had restored his confidence and allowed him to fulfill his duties without worry. In both their lives, a small intersection of circumstance had created a lasting connection. One had offered help without expectation. The other had received guidance in a foreign land when it was most needed. It was a quiet story of humanity, of understanding across cultures, and of a reminder that even in a world of rush and noise, one person could make a difference simply by paying attention. After the shuttle drove away, the janitor returned to his routine. The hum of cleaning machines and the quiet chatter of airport staff surrounded him, but his mind wandered back to the Admiral. It was unusual for someone in his position to meet a person of such high rank. Usually, the people around him barely noticed he existed. Yet that morning had felt different. He had been useful. He had mattered. Later that evening, after his shift, he walked home through the streets. The city lights flickered softly on wet pavements. His child, waiting at home, had been asking about dinner, homework, and bedtime. The janitor smiled at the thought of the child's small routines and simple happiness. That was his life now. Long work hours, quiet nights, and a constant effort to provide a stable world for his child. Dreams of other careers, of travel, of speaking Japanese professionally, had faded years ago, but helping the Admiral reminded him that those skills and dreams still live quietly inside him. Meanwhile, across town at the conference, the Admiral reviewed his schedule and notes. Meetings with international officials were planned back-to-back. Delegates discussed naval exercises, international law, and humanitarian missions at sea. His expertise was needed, and he delivered it with precision, yet his mind often drifted back to the janitor. In a hall full of officers and assistants, no one else had noticed his confusion that morning. No one else had spoken his language. That brief interaction had changed how he felt about the day. It had calmed his nerves, allowed him to focus, and reminded him that human kindness mattered more than protocol or appearances. By mid-morning, the Admiral was scheduled to meet a group of officials to review strategic exercises. He arrived early, scanning the room, ensuring he understood the layout. In his mind, he imagined the janitor standing beside him, quietly guiding him. The memory made him smile. Not a grand smile, but a quiet one, full of appreciation. He thought about the janitor's careful voice, the way he had pushed the cleaning cart, the way he had navigated the airport with patience and clarity. That image stayed with him throughout the meeting. Later, the Admiral asked one of the staff to help locate the janitor. He wanted to express his gratitude properly. The staff were surprised, but quickly set out to find the man. When they reached the janitor, he was finishing up a final sweep in a distant part of the airport. He looked tired but content, focused on the small details of his work. The staff approached him politely and explained that a visitor wished to thank him. The janitor raised his eyebrows in surprise. He had not expected this. He pushed the cart to the side and followed the staff to a small office where the Admiral was waiting. When he entered, the Admiral stood and bowed slightly. His uniform was crisp, his posture perfect. He extended a hand, and the janitor shook it, feeling a quiet thrill. They spoke in Japanese, the Admiral careful to express respect, the janitor calm but polite. "I wanted to thank you personally," the Admiral said. "Your guidance this morning allowed me to arrive on time. Without you, I would have been lost." The janitor shook his head modestly. "It was nothing. I just helped a little. Anyone could have done the same." The Admiral's eyes softened. "No, not anyone. You noticed. You spoke my language. You cared enough to act. That makes all the difference." The janitor's chest tightened slightly. He had not expected recognition, especially not from someone so distinguished. He felt a warmth spreading through him, a rare feeling that his efforts mattered in a larger way. They began to talk quietly about the morning. The janitor explained how he had learned Japanese years ago, how life had prevented him from using it professionally, and how raising his child alone had filled every day with responsibility but little recognition. The Admiral listened attentively, nodding. He understood discipline, dedication, and sacrifice. He recognized the strength it took to maintain such a life quietly, without complaint. The Admiral shared some of his own experiences. He spoke of years at sea, of commanding a ship through storms, of navigating complex political waters. He did not speak of rank or medals, but of responsibility and duty. The janitor listened, realizing that despite their very different lives, both of them shared a sense of obligation, one to a nation, the other to a child. The conversation shifted gently to lighter topics. The Admiral asked about the janitor's child, his hobbies, what made him laugh. The janitor responded with small stories of evenings filled with homework, reading, and bedtime stories. They laughed quietly together, a shared moment in a world that often overlooked them both. As the afternoon passed, the janitor walked with the Admiral to the conference hall, explaining how the rooms were arranged and how to navigate the area. Officials who passed by barely noticed them. The janitor remained in the background, but his guidance ensured that the Admiral arrived at every session on time, fully prepared and composed. The Admiral felt a quiet confidence he had not experienced since arriving. He realized that his ability to perform well that day depended not only on his own expertise, but on the kindness and attention of someone he would have otherwise overlooked. It was a lesson in humility, in recognizing the quiet impact of everyday people. Back at home, the janitor prepared dinner for his child, reflecting on the morning's events. He realized that even though his life was filled with struggle, he had moments where he could make a real difference. Small actions, speaking forgotten language, noticing someone who needed help, giving attention to a person others ignored, had consequences far greater than he had imagined. It gave him a quiet satisfaction, a sense of purpose beyond the usual routines. The evening passed with simple pleasures. Homework completed, stories read, bedtime rituals followed. The janitor felt a renewed sense of strength. The interaction with the Admiral reminded him that the skills and knowledge he had thought lost were still valuable. Life could be difficult, but moments of connection, genuine human connection, had a power that no struggle could diminish. Meanwhile, at the conference, the Admiral reflected on the day. Meetings, discussions, and decisions went smoothly. He attributed his calm and focus to the morning guidance he had received. He often thought about the janitor, about the humility and care he had shown. The Admiral knew that in a world full of formality and hierarchy, true impact sometimes came from the smallest gestures, from individuals who acted without expectation, from someone who simply noticed and cared. By the end of the day, both men had returned to their routines, but something had changed within them. The janitor carried a quiet pride and renewed confidence, knowing his efforts mattered. The Admiral carried a memory of kindness and respect that reminded him of the human side of leadership and the importance of noticing others. In different worlds, their lives intersected for a moment, leaving a lasting impression. Both would remember that day not just for the events themselves, but for the unexpected connection between two people from very different worlds. A moment of attention, a language remembered, a small act of guidance. It was enough to bridge oceans, careers, and circumstances. It was enough to change a day, perhaps even a life, forever. The next morning, the conference began in earnest. Delegates from several countries were already seated in the large hall, reviewing papers, murmuring quietly, and preparing for the sessions ahead. The Admiral arrived on time, calm and composed. He had slept well, but his mind was not on the meetings alone. He kept thinking about the janitor who had guided him through confusion the previous day. That man's quiet presence had allowed him to perform with confidence and clarity. The Admiral waited for a break in the sessions, watching as officials discussed naval strategies, communication protocols, and future cooperation plans. At the appointed time, he stood and asked a staff member a simple question. "Where's the janitor who helped me yesterday?" The staff looked surprised, but immediately set out to find the man. Word spread quickly among the organizers, and soon the janitor was politely summoned to the hall. When he entered, he felt a mix of curiosity and unease. He was used to staying unnoticed, blending into the background while the world moved around him. Now, he was being called to stand in front of a room full of officials and important delegates. His heart beat faster, but he pushed the feeling aside. There was no choice but to follow. The Admiral stood as the janitor approached, bowing slightly. He greeted the man in Japanese, his voice steady, showing respect and gratitude. The janitor responded in kind, unsure what to expect. The room fell silent as the delegates watched, curious about the exchange between these two people. The Admiral spoke clearly, explaining the situation. "Yesterday, this man guided me through the airport when I was lost. He spoke to me in my language, helped me find the transportation, and ensured I arrived on time. Without him, my day would have been far more difficult. I want everyone to know that his actions made a real difference. The janitor's eyes widened slightly. He had not expected such public recognition. He felt a warm mix of pride, embarrassment, and disbelief. He had never been called a hero before. He had simply done what he thought was right. The delegates and staff around the room murmured their approval, surprised that such an act could come from someone so quiet and ordinary. The janitor's humility contrasted sharply with the grandeur of the conference, and it drew quiet admiration from many. The Admiral continued, speaking of the janitor's dedication and skill. He has worked quietly in this airport unnoticed, yet he possesses knowledge and abilities that allowed him to assist me. It is a reminder that character is revealed not by rank, but by kindness and attention to others. We should all remember this. The janitor's cheeks flushed. He lowered his eyes, feeling awkward under the attention, but also deeply moved. He realized that his simple act of helping had been recognized in a way he never imagined. It was not just gratitude. It was acknowledgement of his worth and his quiet, steady presence in a world that often overlooked people like him. After the brief public recognition, the Admiral spoke to him privately. He asked about the janitor's life, his work, and his child. They spoke quietly in Japanese while the staff and delegates gave them space. The janitor explained his long hours, the struggles of raising his child alone, and the sacrifices he had made over the years. The Admiral listened attentively, nodding with understanding and empathy. "It is rare to meet someone who acts without expectation," the Admiral said softly. "You noticed me when others did not. That is a rare quality. I hope you understand how valuable that is." The janitor felt a warmth in his chest. It was not about reward or recognition, but about the understanding and respect of someone he had never expected to meet. He felt seen, valued, and respected for the first time in a long while. As the day progressed, the janitor was invited to observe the conference in a more informal capacity. He stayed quietly in the back, listening to discussions, witnessing the work of officials, and realizing the impact of small actions in a larger world. He saw how guidance, support, and attention could ripple outward, influencing events far beyond the immediate moment. Meanwhile, the Admiral continued his duties, now confident and at ease. He knew he had someone trustworthy, someone who had demonstrated patience, care, and skill. That morning's guidance had ensured he could focus entirely on the important decisions and discussions at hand. The difference it made was tangible. During a break, the Admiral approached the janitor once again. "You have a skill that is valuable," he said. "Your knowledge of languages, your ability to observe and act, your calm presence, these are not small things. I hope you consider using them more. Perhaps there are opportunities you have not yet imagined." The janitor shook his head, smiling faintly. "I have a life here, a child to care for. It is enough." The Admiral nodded. "But sometimes new opportunities come when least expected. You have a gift. Remember that." The janitor nodded, feeling a quiet sense of possibility. The day moved forward. The sessions continued, and the work of the conference unfolded. Yet both men carried a subtle change within them. The Admiral had been reminded of the power of noticing, of kindness, and of humility. The janitor had been reminded of the value of his knowledge, his care, and the small but meaningful difference one person can make. By evening, the janitor returned to his home, carrying with him a sense of quiet satisfaction. The day had been unusual, challenging, and rewarding. He reflected on the morning, on the Admiral, and on the simple act of paying attention. Life was still filled with work, responsibilities, and quiet struggles, but he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The Admiral, back in his hotel room, reviewed the day's meetings and discussions. He thought about the janitor and the lesson of the morning. It was a reminder that leadership, responsibility, and success were not just about decisions and strategy. They were also about human connection, about noticing the unnoticed, and about valuing small acts of care. In both lives, a subtle but lasting change had taken place. The janitor had experienced recognition and validation, something rare in his daily routine. The Admiral had experienced support and guidance from an unexpected source. Their brief connection had created a ripple effect, influencing actions, decisions, and perceptions in ways neither could fully measure. As night fell, the janitor tucked his child into bed and sat quietly for a few moments afterward. He thought of the morning, of the Admiral, and of the idea that even small actions, done without expectation, could have profound consequences. It was a comforting thought, one that stayed with him as he prepared for the next day. The Admiral, lying in a distant hotel room, held a similar thought. He understood that recognition, kindness, and attention were the true markers of value. That morning had reminded him that no matter how busy, how structured, or how official life became, there were always moments where human connection mattered most. Their worlds, though different, had intersected in a meaningful way. Both carried forward a sense of purpose, understanding, and quiet gratitude. A simple act of help, a small gesture of kindness, had created an impact far beyond the immediate moment. It was a story neither would forget, a reminder that in the midst of busy lives, small but genuine actions could change the course of a day, a career, or even a life. The conference had been going for a few days. Sessions were intense, filled with discussions about international cooperation, naval strategy, and shared security. Delegates from around the world exchanged ideas, plans, and formalities. Yet amidst all the business, the Admiral kept thinking about the janitor who had helped him from the very start. That small act of kindness, speaking in a language remembered but rarely used, had changed the course of his day and given him the calm focus he needed. On the fourth day, after a particularly long meeting, the Admiral called his assistant quietly. "I want to meet the janitor who helped me," he said softly. The staff looked surprised but nodded, understanding that the Admiral's gratitude was sincere. A short while later, the janitor was brought to a quiet room near the conference hall. He had been continuing his cleaning duties, moving through corridors unnoticed, but now he found himself standing before someone he had only met a few days before under unusual circumstances. The Admiral greeted him in Japanese, as before. "I've been thinking about what you did for me," he said, his voice calm but earnest. "Not many people would notice. Not many would act. I would like to offer you an opportunity." The janitor blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. Opportunities were rare in his life beyond the routine of work and raising his child. He had learned to accept that, finding satisfaction in small moments. I do not understand," he said carefully. The Admiral smiled gently. "You have skills that are rare. You know languages. You notice details. You act with patience and care. These qualities are valuable in work that requires cultural understanding, translation, and international communication. I want to help you use your talents." The janitor felt a surge of emotion. No one had ever spoken to him like this before. No one had ever acknowledged the skills and thoughtfulness he carried quietly in his daily life. It was a mix of disbelief, hope, and gratitude. "You mean a real opportunity?" he asked softly. "Yes," the Admiral replied. "I will recommend you to a program that works with international cooperation. It will give you the chance to use your language skills and insight in a meaningful way. I believe you will excel." The janitor hesitated, thinking of his child, the responsibilities he carried, and the life he had built. It was overwhelming to consider change, but the weight of the opportunity pressed gently on him. It was a chance to do something he had once dreamed of but thought was lost. He nodded slowly. I am grateful. Truly." The Admiral inclined his head in understanding. "You deserve recognition, not for glory, but because you acted from kindness. That is something few people do." Over the next few weeks, the janitor began the process of transitioning. He learned about the program the Admiral recommended, and slowly, carefully, he took steps toward a new role. The work was different, challenging, and rewarding. It demanded focus, patience, and attention to detail, the same qualities he'd used instinctively to help the Admiral. Yet now, those qualities were appreciated and recognized. At home, life adjusted as well. His child noticed the subtle changes in his routine, the quiet excitement in his voice, and the sense of pride that now accompanied daily tasks. Even small victories, like a completed translation or a successful meeting, became shared celebrations. The janitor realized that life could be difficult, but moments of recognition, moments of meaningful work, brought joy and motivation. Meanwhile, the Admiral continued with the conference, often reflecting on the janitor's influence. In a world of structure, protocol, and hierarchy, he was reminded that the actions of one unnoticed person could have a lasting impact. He shared this story privately with colleagues, highlighting the importance of humility, attention, and kindness. The lesson was clear. Leadership and success were not measured solely by rank or achievement, but by the ability to see and support those around you. One afternoon, during a less formal gathering at the conference, the Admiral took a moment to speak again with the janitor. They talked about life challenges and responsibilities. The janitor shared small stories about raising his child, the evening spent reading or helping with homework, and the quiet satisfaction found in daily care. The Admiral listened with patience, his respect evident in every gesture. Their conversation was simple, human, and meaningful, a reminder that connection transcends circumstance. The janitor realized something important. His life, though filled with work and responsibility, had value far beyond the daily routine. The skills he thought forgotten were still alive. The patience, observation, and quiet dedication he used every day were valuable in ways he had never imagined. And it had taken just a moment, a small act of kindness, to bring that recognition to light. As the conference drew to a close, the Admiral approached the janitor one last time. "You have a gift," he said. "Never underestimate what you can do. Life will give you challenges, but it also gives unexpected chances. Use them wisely, and you will make a difference in ways you cannot yet see." The janitor nodded, feeling the weight of those words settle warmly in his heart. He understood that life was full of struggles, but also full of moments where courage, skill, and care could change everything. He had lived quietly, but now he knew that even small, unnoticed actions could ripple outward, affecting people, events, and lives in ways he had never expected. Returning home after conference, he embraced his child, sharing stories of the days past, the new possibilities ahead, and the lessons learned. There was a sense of hope, quiet but strong, that filled the small apartment. Life would continue to have challenges, but it was also filled with potential. The janitor understood that every act of care, every small gesture, every moment of attention could matter in ways that were invisible but profound. In his own way, the Admiral carried the memory of the janitor forward as well. He saw leadership not just as a set of actions, plans, and decisions, but as an awareness of people, an acknowledgement of their contributions, and a recognition of kindness when it appeared. He shared the story with colleagues and friends, quietly advocating for the value of noticing, listening, and acting from care. Their connection, brief but meaningful, had changed both lives. The janitor's life gained opportunity and recognition. The Admiral's day and perspective were enhanced by guidance and humanity. A simple act, a remembered language, and a willingness to notice someone overlooked had created lasting change. The janitor, once unseen, had become someone whose skill, patience, and thoughtfulness were recognized and valued. He understood now that life's small moments, the gestures we make, the attention we give, the kindness we show, can change not only a single day, but a person's path, perhaps even a lifetime. And as he tucked his child into bed that night, he realized that some of the most important work we do is unseen, but no less meaningful for it. Far away, the Admiral reflected on the same lesson. The conference continued, decisions were made, and international work proceeded. But he remembered that morning in the airport, the quiet janitor who spoke Japanese, and the reminder that humanity, attention, and kindness are as powerful as any rank, skill, or title. In both their lives, a small but lasting impact had been made, one that would resonate far beyond the moments in which it first occurred.